So I have a lot of thoughts about Taylor Swift, her work, everything that she does, and very often I feel like I can't share them all here unless I can do a fully produced video wherein I explain it all. I leave a lot of my best thoughts on the place where the sky is blue, and I am attempting to remedy that by also sharing them here. So welcome to the first episode of what I believe is going to be a series wherein I look over the posts that would otherwise get lost in my blue skies. If things interest people, if they want to see full videos, they can let me know down below, and then I can have a little bit like more of my thoughts out in the world, because I think I have some interesting thoughts. They're fun for me to think about, at least. So first off, I want to say that for the past like 6-7 albums, I don't think that more than like 2 Taylor Swift songs were just about one subject, one person, one place, one thing. I think very often there are a lot of layers of meaning. There are a lot of different ways albums can be interpreted. Albums can be interpreted differently forwards than they are backwards. TTPD and The Life of a Showgirl both, I think, are better backwards. There's just some really interesting things going on, especially with Showgirl, which Taylor has admitted, like, the Showgirl is a character. This isn't literal. A lot of this is satire. A lot of this is like blank space. Hopefully that loud car wasn't just like over dominating me. I may have to go inside at a point, but regardless, there are very often so many more layers of meaning than so many people realize, and the deeper you dig, the more you find, and that is one of the most favorite parts of looking into her work. So something very important that is a big theme of all of my analytical work and how I view Taylor is that Taylor Swift is her own favorite muse. Almost all of her songs are revealing something of herself, a facet of her personality, a persona that she's put on for a person, a place, a thing, a scenario. There are so many different versions of herself. She talks about mirrorballing. She talks about having different facets, different versions of herself. We've talked on this channel before about 2 Taylors. I really think it's a lot more than 2 Taylors. I limited it to 2 back then just because I think that's the easiest way to introduce people. With Midnight, she really started being more heavy about the 3 different Taylors. Regardless, Taylor's second biggest muse is the fandom itself. Taylor really does value her fans, and it is a difficult relationship because so many fans have so many different expectations of her. They get so upset about different things, they get so excited about different things, and it has got to be a challenge to not just stay relevant in the eyes of so many different people, but also to like just survive being able to be a mirror ball, reflecting back so much. A lot of fan expectations, but also like the way the media portrays Taylor and the way fans can sometimes take everything that the media says literally, even when there doesn't seem to be a lot of evidence attached to that. I think the media and her relationship with it, the industry and her relationship with it are 2 other really big themes. There are a number of other muses. Often many songs have multiple muses, multiple layers of meaning, a literal layer of meaning, a figurative layer of meaning, a layer of meaning where Taylor is negotiating with herself and the different parts of herself. Parts work we've talked before, but also with her fandom, her relationship with the fandom. I think in a lot of regards, her songs are like encapsulated memory jewels of a moment in time or a memory or a feeling, and a lot of times it seems like she is layering together multiple different times she felt away. She is the cinephile. I've discussed this in a video before. She loves movies. There are so many fascinating things about the media that Taylor peppers throughout her work. There are so many times, Brand New is a great example in So High School, the band Brand New. There are so many times when she is either calling out with her lyrics. There's also Clara Bow, which sounds like a missing song from either Bleed American or Polaris, the Jimmy Eat World album. It's very clear that media really influenced Taylor, and that's a big element of who she is as well. Keeping all of those things in mind, let us discuss some of the thoughts that I've had on Bluesky. There's a lot of mosquitoes out here that I didn't necessarily realize, so I think we're gonna do the rest of this indoors. Next up, and I said this at the very beginning, much like TTPD, I think I like The Life of a Showgirl better in reverse track order. The Life of a Showgirl just makes more sense to me as a starter. And when I posted that, Celia, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your username, reverse order track 5 is Wishlist, and the satire of the album and how Swifties expect Taylor to make track 5 a certain way, the way they want her, feels very interesting, and I agree with that. That is one of my favorite things about this. Neither track 5, neither order is a traditional track 5. They are both satirical, at least in part, but this way is particularly interesting. But what I like about this way is I think the reason Life of a Showgirl is the last track, when very often a self-titled track is earlier in the album, the beginning of the album, things of that nature, is because In the lead up to this, Taylor was kind of acting like this was going to be a literal, true album. Like, a lot of us had figured out this was probably going to be characters, this was probably going to be satire. She didn't officially confirm that until after the album had already released. Most people took that album at face value the first time they listened to it, and if you get through all the way to the end and then you are paying attention to the lyrics of The Life of a Showgirl, you realize that The Life of a Showgirl is kind of where, like, the gig is up. It's kind of where the game is explained. At the beginning of the Showgirl's career, Showgirl met another Showgirl. The other Showgirl said, hey, this is how you succeed in show business. So I think the first time I listened to the album through, I called The Life of a Showgirl like the deal with the devil, the bargain with the devil, basically giving up, sacrificing so much of yourself because you desire to be a showgirl, to have this career, to be able to go out and have influence and have people listen to your lyrics and all of those things. You also have to make a bargain. You have to deal with being famous. You have to deal with putting on a persona. So many of the things that we've discussed on my channel previously. I believe the song was saved to the end so that most people would realize when they listened to and looked at the lyrics of the final track exactly what the game is being played here. And if they didn't notice that, they would notice in the interviews, and there are still some people that haven't noticed, so I guess they're just not looking at the lyrics or the interviews too seriously yet. I kind of get that. And one of the biggest pieces of criticism that I heard about this album is just that, like, it felt disjointed, or it didn't feel like it was leading from one thing into another. In reverse track order, it makes a lot of sense. It is an interesting decision to start out your album with this, oh, I was a princess and now I'm saved kind of attitude, when in reality, a lot of times that is going to be the material that is for last. At the very beginning of the reverse track order of Life of a Showgirl, you have Taylor, the showgirl character, kind of making this decision to become a showgirl, even though she has been warned with the sacrifices that she's going to need to make, the bad things that are going to happen from this other showgirl that she looked up to. I think in this case, it's very much a Brittany to Taylor parable in many, many ways. Whilst these are characters, I do think in a lot of ways they are based on real events, real things in Taylor's life. But in finishing with Fate of Ophelia, you have a narrative where, like, she goes into this bargain, she goes into this deal knowing that she's going to have to sacrifice a lot. And you see kind of the things that she goes through during the other, 10 tracks. And then for the finale, you have the Fate of Ophelia, where Showgirl saves herself. Or I don't necessarily know that it's correct to say that. It may just be that Showgirl sacrifices herself, or the Showgirl character drowns / gets dragged into the fire. This is clearly not a romantic song. It may seem like a romantic song on the surface, but the Fate of Ophelia, all of the lines that could be romantic are not romantic. This is not describing something that a partner, certainly not something that Travis Kelce has done for Taylor. Instead, I believe this is a journey of Taylor's true inner self realizing how to save herself, utilizing showgirl and show business and fame and things of that nature to save the inner person that remains inside even after the act has been going on for many years. You know, I've pointed out in the past a number of times in the history of Taylor's work, if anybody could be described as a pyro, it is Taylor Swift herself. In Eras Tour, We Burned Down the Lover's House. In Midnights, the very first cover is her lighting a lighter, I believe. I think it's a lighter. I'm not sure. It might be a match. Regardless of what it is, if anybody is a pyro in Taylor's corpus, it is Taylor herself. But it also has a theme that a lot of this album has, which is every romantic sounding phrase is not romantic if you give it even a second of thought. For example, and if you'd never come to me, I might have lingered in purgatory. Purgatory in Catholicism is the space between, like, life and hell, or if you get cleansed in purgatory, you go to heaven, I believe that. It's been a while since Catholic school. Regardless, it is a limbo state before you go to your final destination. After lingering in purgatory, though, you wrap around me like a chain, a crown, a vine, pulling me into the fire. So she was in purgatory, and then whoever or whatever this force was that grabs onto her, wraps around her with these very unromantic words, chain, crown, vine. These are things that bind, things that are obligations, commitments that don't necessarily seem as good as they actually are in the form of a crown, pulling me into the fire. So hell, if this song is about Travis Kelce, it is doubly not romantic, because he took her from purgatory and pulled her via a chain, a crown, or vine into hell. I mean, that's a choice. It's really obvious that these are lyrics that are not meant to be taken romantically once you look into them. Spelling is Funler also had commented looking backward might be the only way to move forward, and at last she knew what the agony had been for. And this is a piece of evidence that we use to invert the order of TTBD as well. And I had replied to that and said the reverse narrative has the narrator choosing the showgirl life in the beginning, knowing the pain that it will cause her. Then it becomes the narrative of princess saving herself. With Fate of Ophelia at the end, the showgirl is drowning and going through purgatory and hell to finally let the narrator free. But also going back to the looking backward may be the only way to move forward, and at last she knew what the agony had been for, I had said, exactly, I think this and inversion or mirror images are so important in so many ways. I need to go back before Midnights and see how her other albums are in reverse. I still haven't done that yet. And that segues in really good to something else that I said. This was in response to The Seven Wives of RH, pointing out the mirror of Lover is very interesting, and I had said the life of a showgirl is Lover just in a Star Trek mirror world, everyone is opposite or evil in some way sort of sense. So something a lot of us were noticing in the lead up to this album is that the variants were like inverted colors of each other. So if you take a photo and you make the colors the opposite side colors on the color wheel, you get what is called a color inversion, invert. But then when we got the full album aesthetic, a lot of us, especially like I said, the Seven Wives of RH, were noticing more and more occasions where like the inverted colors of things are the right colors of other things. And Lover, Life of a Showgirl, inverted from each other. Invert is something that I have been tracking personally just because of the fact that back, especially in the UK, women who were bi, women who were lesbian were referred to as inverts. And in fact, the people that would diagnose them as inverts were called alienists. And I think that this is why inverted, inversion, and also like alien abduction, things of that nature have become so much of a prominent theme in like her recent albums. But also going back to the Star Trek of it all, we've discussed about how this album is a character. It is a caricature of what a lot of people believe Taylor Swift to be. If you have a viewpoint of who you think Taylor is, if you have a perspective, if you have an opinion, you will probably find it confirmed somewhere in this album. If you want to believe that she is just going to throw her life and career away for Travis, you can find that in this album. If you want to believe that she's some fickle person who only cares about like designer clothes and bad people that wear them, you can find that in this album. But in finding that, you are revealing more about yourself and what you think of Taylor and what you think of her music than you're revealing about Taylor or the album or her music. Because so much of the album goes against so many of the previous things that Taylor have said about herself, her viewpoints, things of that nature, even whilst she was on the tour circuit for this album. She spoke on one of the radio shows, I believe it was, about all of the people that were believing that she was just going to throw away her career for Travis, which I believe the song Wishlist is basically, I'm going to throw away everything that I cared about in my career, everything like that, because all that matters right now is you and having your babies. But when she was asked about people that have this perspective that she's just going to quit her career and go and be the wife and mother of his kids and never touch music or any of the other goals that she said that she's had for many, many years, she said that it was offensive. And it's so interesting because so many people say that it is offensive to speculate that she might be a member of the LGBTQ community. And they really treat people who make theories like that pretty cruelly on the internet. Yet at the same time, there are so many people who are practically begging her to get out of the studio and get under that man and get knocked up pregnant in his kitchen and then have a baby on the sidelines. And that's the thing that Taylor has said is offensive, and they don't get called out nearly as much. Huh, interesting. Something else that I said that I don't necessarily wholly agree with is it can't be a cult classic if it is immediately universally loved. I don't think that this album could be considered a cult classic either way. I do think that it can be something more along the lines of Reputation, where a lot of people don't like it at first because they don't understand it. They willfully misunderstand it because they don't like Taylor for whatever reason, only to realize over the course of time that it actually does have a lot of value as an album. Like, there are some really catchy beats. There's some really interesting things musically that she does with this. This video that I watched the other day about how Life of Ophelia is using a progression that is very common in gospel music, really interesting. A lot of people are judging this album as being poorly written because it very often uses simple wordplay, or it uses wordplay that is designed to stick out as not feeling right, which I believe is to make people think about those things more, to notice those things more, to like be like, wait, what is actually going on here on on, you know, successive listens. What a lot of people very into folklore were saying, though, is that, oh, Taylor has forgotten how to write, Taylor doesn't know how to write anymore, Travis has made her so she doesn't know how to write anymore. Some version of that. And just because someone is using simple words doesn't necessarily mean that they have forgotten how to write. And in fairness, if you want me to write something convoluted, I can have it done pretty quickly. If you want me to have something very succinct, very to the point, very simplistic, it will take me a lot longer to think of those words. But a lot of the words that Taylor is using when she is being more simplistic is in order to be able to have multiple different meanings, multiple different interpretations, multiple different contexts that can then be layered on top of the song so that it can be seen through a different perspective. So much of this is about perspective, where you're viewing from, how you're viewing from. There's talks about mirrors, there's talks about shattering, there's talks about like all of the visual elements of this too, like all of the mirroring, all of the shattering. But also there are layers. There is a layer for people who just want to make this about Tavis and her relationship with Travis. It's not the most interesting layer, and in fact it is a layer that is very deceptive. Like I said earlier, not very romantic. This is not a love song. None of these are love songs except perhaps to yourself or to the parts of yourself that you have learned how to appreciate differently now that you have utilized them to your own salvation. But underneath it, I think there's a lot of layers about Taylor's relationship with herself, Taylor's relationship with family and friends, Taylor's relationship with the fandom. Like I said earlier, her two biggest muses, herself, her fans. Nearly every song on The Life of a Showgirl, if not every song on The Life of a Showgirl, has a layer where it is geared towards Taylor herself and also a layer where it's geared towards her fans. On The Place Where the Sky is Blue, we have been making a lot of connections between Taylor and Britney. One of the ones that I made is cameras are flashing while we're dirty dancing. They keep watching. Feels like the crowd is saying, give me more. The Crowd of King variant of The Life of a Showgirl, and I had connected that to all of the pieces of me shattered as the crowd was chanting more. Most of Taylor's fans have something that they want Taylor to deliver to them, and that is pretty much across the board. Most of Taylor's fans, they want to have, oh, I want to have love songs, I want to have maternity songs, I want to have songs about the industry, I want to have, so there's so many different people that want so many different things from Taylor, and it seems like even when she gives them a lot, I think back to the end of Eras Tour, those last few Eras Tour shows she was recording, so she wore the same outfits every single night. And a lot of fans were upset that she didn't announce anything at the end, that she didn't have different outfits, and they were like upset that she didn't go above and beyond the 40+ songs that she performed for 3.5 hours over 100 nights. Taylor is very often put in a position where as soon as she gives her fans something, either they're like, cool, that was great, let me have the next thing, or they're like, oh, I didn't want that, I wanted this. It is fairly uncommon to be like, I wish Taylor would take a break and rest and just recuperate after all of the things that she's done. You rarely hear people say, I don't care what the album is like, I just love new Taylor songs. One of the reasons that this album is so interesting to me is because a friend of mine, hi Mac if you're watching this, a friend of mine is not a Taylor fan. He does occasionally watch my Taylor videos, but for this album he decided to listen to it and he loved it. And a lot of people that I know that aren't huge Taylor fans, like my dad really likes a couple of the songs on it because he is very much a 1989 fan. Next up, I did some talk about Dead Poets Society because one of my mutuals said, just watch Dead Poets Society for the first time. Holy crap, that ate. If anybody has any threads about connecting it to Taylor's art, other art, let me know. What an incredible movie with so much subtext and sexuality. And if you've been here a while, you know that my theory that in part Tortured Poets Department, one of the many, many, many things that that album is, because it is a tremendous number of things, is a soundtrack for Dead Poets Society. So my response was, Dead Poets Society also has a thriving fan fiction community on Tumblr. Neil and Todd have been recognized as queer-coded for a while now, and that ship is largely why. There's also a lot of overlap with Gaylor in that if you're looking at Gaylor stuff on Tumblr, you get a lot of Neil and Todd stuff. Whilst I suspect Taylor relates to all of the Dead Poets boys on some level, Neil's circumstances are similar to what many Gaylors assumed Taylor's circumstances were. Their fathers wanted them to prioritize future financial security over the art, the people, and the queerness that they loved. Next up is not a theory, it's more of just an opinion, and it's an opinion that I stand by. Imagine preferring Maddie Healy as a muse for a Taylor Swift song than a woman. Even when I suggest that that woman is Taylor Swift, a number of commenters, no, it's Maddie, the cinephile is Maddie, all of these people are Maddie. Look, I understand that she walked around hand in hand with Maddie for a couple of times. I just don't necessarily understand why people are so desperate for narratives to be about Maddie. Personally, especially if somebody is suggesting that a song is about Taylor herself, aspects of her personality, who she was in the past, who she hopes to be in the future, whatever it is, I would much rather have that be the muse of the song than Maddie. Realistically, I would also much rather any woman that she's been tangentially associated with over the years to have been a muse, the muse of any number of songs than Maddie. And it is so interesting to me, not only that so many people are just like, okay, this song is about Maddie, I'm gonna eat that up, but also feel so strongly about that as to when people have other theories about the songs that Taylor has never confirmed are about anybody in particular, save a few randoms over the years, is about Maddie. Like, a lot of people will look through a Taylor Swift song and all they will do is look for signs of that specific muse. And when they find 1, 2, 3, they'll be like, yes, this song is about Maddie Healy. Even though there are very often other muses that might have 3, 4, 5 lines that could be pointing at them. We do not know who these songs are about. There are very, very, very few songs that just solely seem to be about one thing. First off, like Ronan is probably one of the only examples that is quickly coming to mind. But realistically, those commenters very often hold back a lot of discourse. It is very difficult to actually interpret Taylor's songs from any real interpretive lens other than the lens that a lot of fans prefer, because they will dogpile you. No, it's about Maddie. How could you be so stupid as to think that it's about anybody other than Maddie? I mean, if that's how you want to spend time in people's comments, it's not the life choice that I would make. I would much rather connect things to Taylor herself, her family, her friends, movies. Like, there are so many more interesting angles to take with Taylor's work than the men. Life of a Showgirl is the best example of an album that, like, the worst, like, the, like, most shallow, like, most insipid way to interpret this album is, it's about men. And I'll actually take that a step further. Like, if you were really attached to any one single muse and you were really hoping that this album was going to be full of love songs about that one muse, those seem to be the people who really didn't like the album as much. My next post is in response to MP saying, LOL, and who wants to bet same thing gonna happen today with them forgetting to celebrate Red's anniversary. I wonder if the showgirl isn't in the mood to reminisce about the past, but I thought looking backwards was the only way to move forward. And my comment was, what if we've stopped moving forwards? And I'm very much wondering about that. I have a couple of theories. One theory is that we are actually in debut. And the reason that those albums are not necessarily being recognized is because it's debut, they don't exist yet. If we have moved all the way backwards through to the very beginning, that does make sense. But also there are a couple of like alternate timelines that a couple of fans have proposed, most notably the Taylor Nation timeline, which I just don't have time to explain here. You're going to have to do a little bit of your own work on this. So I wonder if that timeline isn't active anymore, or I don't know. There's a lot going on with time right now that I'm just like, there's a very clear reason the other albums aren't being recognized. What is that reason? Another thing I said, I am your father figure. You pulled the wrong trigger. So, not the hairpin trigger being one of the lyrics that a lot of Gaylors love, myself included. Saying a hairpin drop is a metaphor for like dropping hints that you are part of the LGBTQ community. It is not a hairpin trigger, it is a hair trigger. Taylor uses the words that she chooses very deliberately. She wouldn't have like chosen the wrong word accidentally and no one noticed or pointed out to it. Like, there are a number of people that are involved in the production of any album. I think if it was a mistake, she probably would have noticed that. And I think like in the past when people have like misheard lyrics, like with Blank Space, a lot of people think the lyric is, got a lot of Starbucks lovers. I don't hear that, but some people do. Like, she has come out to be like, no, that's not what I've said, like things of that nature. I think if she didn't mean hairpin and it was a mistake, she would have called out at some point, oh, that was a silly mistake. A lot of people also say, oh, well, she didn't know what that means. She doesn't know what dropping hairpins means. But the thing is, if she didn't know the first time she used it, she definitely learned when tons of people were saying, oh, hey, maybe it means this. Taylor basically knows every sapphic person in Hollywood worth knowing. If she had done something wrong, if she was sending signals that she didn't realize she was sending, they would tell her. And if she didn't listen and in fact leaned into it, because she has used hairpins both in lyrics in one sense, but also in visuals. She had the visual metaphor of her hair in The Last Great American Dynasty, where at the beginning it was very pinned up and she was very reserved when she passes Rebecca on the stairs, but towards the end, at the very end of Eras Tour, her hair was all the way down and she was flirting openly with Rebecca's character. It's Natalie as the dancer every night. She also did a lot of hairpins in her hair for the Fortnite music video. She's had another lyric referencing hairpin. If Taylor didn't know what hairpin was before she said hairpin trigger, chances are, and I do think that this lyric may be to bring more attention to a number of lyrics in the past. One of the interesting things about The Life of a Showgirl is a lot of elements that she uses, a lot of metaphors that she brings back are things that the Gaylor community has said things about. We've had a lot of discourse about hairpin trigger. She's bringing back Trigger in Father Figure, which is a song by a gay man that is about a gay experience. I digress. I will probably do an entire video on Father Figure, and realistically anything else that you see in this video that you are interested in seeing a video on, again, let me know down below. I've been hinting about this since the beginning, but let's go into it a little bit deeper. I believe that when Taylor's lyrics seem simple, that she is writing to deliberately cause something like the Barnum effect. The words are vague and somewhat general in a way that deliberately draws the listener to either relate or recoil, and terminal uniqueness is a great example of that. Let's define the Barnum effect really quick. The Barnum effect is a common psychological phenomenon whereby individuals give high accuracy ratings to descriptions of their personality that supposedly are tailored specifically to them, yet which are in fact vague and general enough to apply to a broad range of people. This effect can provide a partial explanation for the widespread acceptance of some paranormal beliefs and practices such as astrology, fortune-telling, aura reading, and some types of personality tests. Now, obviously, Barnum effect isn't quite right for this because it's not so much about the listener's self, it is about what they believe of Taylor, but yeah, same general gist. Now, let's circle back to terminal uniqueness. It has several possible ways of being interpreted depending on listeners' experiences, whether they research, and how highly they think of Taylor. It invites haters to show their arse if they mock her. Oh my god, Taylor thinks she's terminally unique. Then there's the addiction angle. We're not going too far into that right now, so I'm just going to leave the definition on screen, which I do think is also an intended angle, but also a lot of people that are autistic or otherwise neurodivergent kind of glommed onto terminal uniqueness because it is kind of relatable. But there's also terminal as in planes or as in endings, so there's a number of other ways that people can interpret that as well. I think in many cases, multiple potential interpretations are true or intended so that Taylor can tell multiple stories at the same time with the same song. Robin, I believe, is one of the best examples of this. I think one layer is meant to be young Taylor, another is Robin Williams, but also any number of other fictional Robins. I have termed this Venn diagram songwriting in the past, essentially taking a bunch of characters, events, often which made her feel the same emotion, making a Venn diagram of characteristics for each, and then writing the song from the areas of overlap. For example, I have pictures of 3 robins roaring at their dinosaurs. Oh, this is a really good one to have next because it also relates to terminal uniqueness. You may have missed my discussion on shibboleths, words, customs, or phrases that can be used to identify other people in an in-group that appears innocuous to folks outside the group. The example I used was terminally unique, which is from addiction groups, but another is Friends of Dorothy. Friends of Dorothy is a shibboleth that a lot of queer people use to identify each other. If you ask a random person if they're a friend of Dorothy, they'll be like, Dorothy Hamilton, Dorothy Smith, but if you tell another queer person, they'll know what it means. Because of the historical association between queerness and Friends of Dorothy and the fact that Taylor has a song called Dorothea, a lot of us call ourselves Friends of Dorothea, and Taylor actually mashed up It's Nice to Have a Friend and Dorothea such that she said Friend of Dorothea in the lyrics, and those songs did not super sound great to each other. Like, they're not at the same tempo at all. They're completely opposite ends of the whole, like, key scale. Like, she had to bring those songs together into a common key and tempo, and it wasn't one of the best sounding ones. It's very clear that that was done that way in order to confirm. Many Gaylors were taking a lot of flack at that juncture because of everything going on with Tavis, and it felt like a little nod. That plus Nose Boopler, which again I don't have time to discuss here, do a little bit of research, my friends, in that it seemed like specific messages being sent to the Gaylor crowd so that we didn't lose faith that, like, what's going on? but I very much suspect that there have been a number of other times that Taylor has also used shibboleths. Those are just the ones that are coming to mind. So I re-blooped this post that says, I have never watched this vlog before, and then I researched the song. It is about this vlog called Demonstrating My Fine Athletic Skills. Taylor has made a lot of allusions back to these original vlogs during the years, one of the biggest being the cardigan, because there is a I hope it's gonna make you notice video from 2009 where she is wearing the closest matching cardigan that we have ever seen to like the one that she's heavily associated the fan base is thinking is the cardigan. Of all of the cardigans that I've seen her wear over the years, this is the only one that really bears a strong resemblance to the cardigan. Oh, I hate winter because I just keep getting so chapped and then my hair gets stuck in my lip oil. Ah! Something else that I had to hop on and discuss was Kelsey Dan Morris posting a screenshot of somebody on TikTok who I don't have the username of, but I don't know. I gotta give it to Taylor. It's a special type of talent to have half the internet think you're a secret homophobe and the other half think you're a closeted lesbian. Like, her range is insane. And I responded, I'm going to say this. When I say this, I mean the album The Life of a Showgirl. Pointedly, I think anyone who has noticed Taylor over the years immediately or quickly clocked this as an act and then made videos about how they believe Gaylors now, because there's been a number of people rushing to be Gaylors now, which is... I love to see it. You love to see it, especially in the performance Artlor branch of Gaylorism. Ah, just the best place on the internet, truly. Then I continue to say, the only way IMO that you can believe the trad wife act is if you were too distracted by muses to see Taylor's heart in her work. Folklore, Evermore, TTPD have so many of Untamed's fingerprints in it. Untamed is a book by Glennon Doyle. Long story short, she had been married to a man, she had kids, she met a woman one day, totally reshaped her life because she realized that she was gay, and then she went through this process of disassembling all of the good girl beliefs that had been imparted on her by cis-heteronormative and the white Christian patriarchy and all of those things. It is very much about unprogramming the good girl behavior that you were taught so that you would be a tool for a man instead of your own person, with your own purpose. And especially, I think it's 7 is almost exactly like the freaking first chapter. And you can really tell when Taylor read Untamed, because then it really seemed to be a process of her like thinking about her childhood, her inner wild self, and like re-embracing that wild child. Regardless, back to what I was saying about it. So much is about healing and trusting herself, realizing nothing, even pain, is eternal. So much about Princess saving herself, fairy's tale not being real life, and happier ever after being particularly fake. In that lens, the fate of Ophelia cannot be romantic. And then I continued on to discuss the point, I think this was when everybody was talking about the lightning bolts on her necklace, which I have seen far more times casually existing as a lightning bolt than I have seen in any particularly sinister sense. Context matters, we'll discuss that in a second. But anyway, with the way Trump and Fox have been desperate for reasons to frame Taylor as an evil force, and with the lives that could be at risk if overzealous folks went after her, she cannot be rash. Trump could turn around tomorrow and declare Taylor merch Antifa gang paraphernalia. People need to be realistic. Another post related to the lightning bolts, I said, it is the same as Orange and 47. First, context matters. But more than that, if we keep deciding to give every color, symbol, etc. to the bad guys, they will slowly take over and corrupt everything. We have to fight back against that, or soon everything is a symbol of evil and we have nothing left. And I think that's a big part of what they want. They want us to have boring, bland lives of servitude. They don't want us to have nice things. Finally, around a week ago, there were a couple of prominent Swiftie creators who made videos coming out against Gaylor, which is very interesting because there has been a huge influx, as I mentioned earlier, of people into Gaylor, into the performance Artlor spaces, because they're like, wait, this album makes far more sense from your perspective than it does through other people's perspectives, and I do think that's one of the reasons why we are seeing such a pushback. But what I did say is, it's not a coincidence that it's the most misogynist-seeming Swifties going against Gaylor. They don't actually like Taylor. They inappropriately overvalued the men in her stories because they like the men, not Taylor. And too many of them value being right on the internet. Gaylor discredits them. A lot of people act like they like Taylor when what they actually like is projecting their own desires, especially with regards to men, upon Taylor. They wish that they could be the ones dating Jake Gyllenhaal and Travis Kelce and all that jazz, and since they can't, they're just gonna listen to Taylor songs
songs and imagine them dating, or they want to be able to know that, oh, this song is definitely about a man, so I can relate it back to a man too. It is not a coincidence that some of Taylor's most understood and most disliked music is the songs that she has written about herself, about friends of hers, about random people and characters. It is always when people can dig through her lyrics for tawdry secrets about her torrid love affairs that people are most receptive to her and her work. And I think that's because a lot of people don't like Taylor as much as they say that they do. And I also think a lot of people have made themselves out to have an expert level knowledge of exactly what songs are about, when it really doesn't seem like any one song is about just one thing. And it's not a surprise to me that there are a number of people that either seemed previously receptive to Gaylor, or have been kind of on the fence, or who haven't had a statement in the past, are suddenly speaking out about Gaylor when there's all of these videos that I'm seeing on TikTok that are like, hey, I think the Gaylors are right. Like, I have seen dozens of videos recently by different people that are like, hey, I've seen a couple of these videos about Gaylor and Performance Artlor, and the things that they are saying jive more than the things that a lot of other people are saying. I also think it's a particularly interesting time to go against Gaylor when a lot of Taylor's interviews have kind of stressed the fact that, like, if people are talking about her, she's winning because it's getting attention on the album. And how, like, just because somebody says something and it involves her name doesn't mean that it's her business. Taylor has been really trying to distance herself from her fans that white knight via attacking people that have different opinions about their song. Like, this is what gets me. Like, so much of the angst against Gaylors is projection based on assumptions about who we are and what we believe, when in reality there is very little that every single Gaylor believes, other than she is probably a member of the LGBTQ community. A lot of people mistake satire as truth. A lot of people assume that the couple loud people that get really invasive and intrusive about people are all of us, when in reality, just like every single other community, you are going to have people that are loudly vocal about being intrusive and about wanting to dig into things that they shouldn't be digging into. Deep dives into lyrics, deep dives into things that she wore when she knew she'd be photographed by paparazzi. That is not being intrusive. That is not doing anything that she has not encouraged fans to do. The one thing that she hasn't encouraged fans to do ever is attack other fans. Regardless, I think that's everything that I said of note in the past week. If you guys like this, I will endeavor to do it more frequently. Please let me know that you liked it by liking, commenting, subscribing. Hey, maybe share it with a couple of friends that you think would like it. I would really appreciate that because it helps me out a lot as a small channel. I have been AerinMoriarty. I do a lot of theory crafting about Taylor Swift, especially from the perspective that Taylor is Taylor's biggest muse. I have a background in electronic media and film. Also, I am a late-in-life lesbian who spent 20 years in the closet, so I have a lot of experience with prioritizing my career over my love life, romance, things of that nature, living a lie for the benefit of capitalism and my bottom line. So I have a unique interest in all of these sorts of things. Thank you so very much for watching all the way to the very end, and have a lovely day.